Buying a house in the Netherlands, understanding all the costs. When buying a house in the Netherlands, the purchase price is not the only cost you should consider. There are additional purchase costs, and in today's video I'm going to tell you all about them. Starting off with your biggest cost, the transfer tax. You pay 2% transfer tax over the purchase price when buying a property. However, you might be eligible for a one-time exemption if you are younger than 35 years old and if you buy something valued at less than 525,000 euro. Other mandatory costs. Besides from the transfer tax, there are 3 other mandatory costs you need to consider. The notary costs. At the notary, you will sign 2 deeds. One is the delivery deed, which makes you the owner of the house, and the other one is the mortgage deed, which puts the mortgage on the property. The total cost for these 2 deeds are approximately 2,000 euro. The second one is the appraisal report. One of the first things you do when you buy a property is getting the house valuated, and the appraisal report will cost you somewhere between the 600 and 800 euros. And this report will determine the market value of the property and is mandatory for your mortgage application. Tip: the sooner you kickstart this process, the better. Mortgage advice and application cost. Finally, you have the cost for your mortgage advice and the application fees. These are necessary for the financing process, which is why they are considered mandatory. The optional additional costs. Besides the mandatory costs that we mentioned, there are optional costs you might want to consider. A technical inspection, for example, is something that could cost you around the 400 euros. While this is not mandatory, it is highly recommended to avoid any unpleasant surprises. Also, a bank guarantee of approximately 350 euros might be applicable if you do not have enough savings to cover 10% of the purchase price as a temporary deposit. A purchase agent. Hiring a purchase agent can also add costs. And the cost of a purchase agent varies, but they provide benefits like helping you avoid overpaying for the property and of course also determining a realistic purchase price. Let's do a calculation as an example. We'll assume a property price of 500,000 and 600,000. What you have to keep in mind is that with 600,000 there will be transfer tax applicable of 2%, which is 12,000 euros, and with the 500,000 this will not be applicable if you're below the 35 years. Then there are some notary costs to keep in mind, which are around the 2,000 euro. You'll have to evaluate the property through appraisal report, which is around the 700. And if you're a first-time buyer, your mortgage advice fee will be around the 3,100. We'll also assume that you'll do a technical inspection of 400 euros and that you'll need a bank guarantee of 350 euros. I'm also going to assume that you'll be using a real estate agent to guide you through the whole process of around the 4,000 euro. And then you'll see that the total purchase cost with a purchase price of 500,000 would be around the 10,500, and for 600,000 it would be around the 22,500. As you can see, the total cost really depends on whether you'll have to pay the transfer tax or not. For a home of 500,000 you would have to have roughly 11,000 euro in savings, and if you would be looking to buying something for 600,000 you should be thinking about roughly 23,000 euro. When buying a newly built property, the purchase costs are much lower. This is mainly because the project developer covers most of the costs involved. So normally there is no transfer tax applicable, there is no valuation report, and you'll save some costs on the notary. Want to know more about mortgages? Make sure to click here.